Hey, by the way, special thanks to those of you listening to us on our huge affiliate in New York, WOR 710 AM. Thank you so much. You know, we've been on the station for just a little bit more than a month, and already you have propelled us almost to the #1 rating in New York, which is absolutely remarkable. When you make a switch to another station, these things take time, and you have pushed us to just unbelievable. Truly unbelievable. So thank you so much. And we are, in that overnight slot, the top #1 rated talk station in New York. So we're on our way there. So thank you so much. And just keep doing what you're doing, and so will we. Anyway, we'll be back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM with your phone calls and stories with Dr. Claude Swanson on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back. We've got Claude Swanson. We've got you and your stories as well. You've looked a little bit at the dowsing and how it works. Let's get your thoughts on that, Claude, before we go to calls.
Sure. Over the years, I've come to know some very good dowsers, Louis Matasha, Walt Woods, and Raymond Grace among them. And it's always amazed me what a good dowser can do. I used to think that they were sensing the mineral energy under the ground, and that's true in some cases. But a lot of dowsing uses maps alone. I had a friend who was a former Exxon executive building a refinery in Puerto Rico, and he used a map dowser in Paris. The fellow used high-resolution maps, never left his apartment, as far as I'm aware, and only got paid when he was successful. And he was very successful, quite wealthy. When he located water, it was very high density sources, very rich sources of water. So that got my attention to the idea that dowsing does not have to use energies that are sensible. My best theory for dowsing is that it's really a psychic process. And that it's based on the muscle tension in the body, which is part of our parasympathetic system. And when we're asking yes/no questions, and if you're getting a no and a no and a no, and all of a sudden you get a yes,
that's right.
Actual changes the structure of the muscle tension in the body, and your dowsing instrument, pendulum, or L-rods, etc., are just an amplifier. They show that change. So that's my...
Yet something goes through your body to give you that, I think, knowledge unknowingly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is our aura. This is our higher dimensional energies in the body that affect the muscle tension through that connection.
All right, let's go to the phones. We'll go to Richmond, Virginia to get things going. Josie, you are on Coast to Coast. Hi, Josie.
Hello, Claude, and hello, George.
Hi.
Hi, Josie.
I missed you at the X conference.
I was there.
You were there, George, but Claude wasn't.
Oh, you're talking to Claude. Sorry, Josie.
Okay.
I'll leave the room now.
I saw you there. Yeah, that's true. Well, anyhow, lost track of your phone number, Claude. You know, Claude and I are friends.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that explains it.
So, you'll have to call me. Anyhow, I'm...
Hey, Josie, can I interject for a second? Josie and I met at the Bruton Parish dig, which is a very interesting little side story you might want to tell him about, or some other time, maybe.
Go ahead, tell him, Joe.
Well, there's a controversy about Shakespeare's papers. Who was Shakespeare? Who wrote the papers, etc. And Manly Palmer Hall's wife wrote a very interesting book proposing that Sir Francis Bacon was involved in this small group who actually wrote the plays. And there was some evidence based on cryptography and cryptograms in the Bruton Parish churchyard to argue that those papers might be buried in a vault there. So this had to do with an expedition, an archaeological expedition.
Aha.
And that's how we met.
Super. Well, go ahead, Josie.
And the funny thing is that it was such a controversy, and my cousin was the lawyer for the church. I mean, the whole thing was and all these New Age people popped out of there. One of them, and I really smelled bad. I mean, there was all this.
Claude, I feel like I'm listening in on a private conversation here.
Well, I mean, it's a good story anyway, no matter who's listening in.
Just a few of us.
I just have a short little story of going to the X conference during this time of Mercury retrograde, which I think is probably the worst Mercury retrograde period that I have ever witnessed, starting with all that ash falling in April, and then going through all of these events that have happened in the earth changes with floods and earthquakes and you name it, but and the oil spill. But the earth, it was just about to go retrograde. Here I was on the road, late for the first party because of various other little delays that happened. And I pray before I get on the highway, and I just put light around me, around the car, and down the road ahead, and then, unless I have need of one, may there be no policeman around, a little thing like that. And usually that works just fine, except I was bombing down the highway at about 90-some miles an hour, and as soon as I saw the policeman, it was too late. And when he approached me, though, it was the attitude was, so, I think there's an effect to the prayer, even though, yes, there was a policeman and did stop me. And he saw that I had a just expired inspections ticket, and he was pleasant to deal with, and we had a nice exchange of conversation. And he then offered me a choice of either
jail
the speeding
or
ticket or a ticket for the inspired inspection. And of course, I chose the inspired inspection, which was a lot better deal than to choose going
90. Yeah.
And so I thought that maybe I needed to be stopped. I always figure that I'm at a place wherever it is I'm supposed to be is where I'm supposed to be, And I kind of think that these little things have and by the way, Claude, I want to thank you for helping me understand about the scientific method. I really, when we and I had conversations, I knew nothing about scientific method and all of that, and I, grown to know and understand and appreciate that a lot more than I did in the past. Of course, we all get a little more wisdom as we get past, say, 60 years old. You're almost there, George. Not yet.
Oh, I'm knocking on the door, Josie. But you know what? I think you somehow summoned up the police officer. And you know how sometimes that happens, Claude. You think about it, you know what you're doing,
yep.
And all of a sudden, boom, there go the results. I think people do it to themselves.
Yep.
Josie, thanks for the call. Next up, we'll go to Kevin in Omaha, Nebraska, first-time caller. Kevin, go ahead. You're on with us.
Yes, George, this is Kevin. I'm a first-time caller. Love your show.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm actually going to bring it back when you guys were talking about the Big Bang Theory.
Sure.
One thing, I don't know if either of you have read the book by Scott Adams called God's Debris.
Yes.
Yes. Now, that book had a really interesting theory on it. It was basically stating, in most religions how there's an omnipotent God, meaning, he could create anything, do anything. He's all-powerful. And so a God of that power would easily get bored because nothing would be a challenge to him. So if you think about it, what would be a challenge to him? And basically what it's coming up with is he would try to attempt to destroy himself. And that would be the only...
Well, you're right. And also that philosophy in his work was that the simplest explanation is always the best explanation. That's what exactly. I got out of that. You too?
Yes, I agree. And I just found it really interesting because, an omnipotent God would probably get bored. And if there was an omnipotent God, it would be a challenge to destroy yourself. And what it's saying is when he did that, it created everything. And every time a soul passes, it's just himself bringing himself back together.
Do you find, Claude, that wrestling with science, with what you now know, you're in conflict with yourself?
Well, let me argue with myself about that for a second.
Yeah.
I think that for me, curiosity and the desire to understand is probably dominant. So as long as I'm on the path of trying to learn and trying to figure it out, it doesn't really bother me to not have the final answer. I'm still looking. So I'm sure there's conflict that goes on there, but I don't feel troubled by it. I think I'm probably more troubled when there are people who seem so sure they have the answer and they don't want to look, especially when there's really blatant examples to indicate that they don't have the final answer. So as long as we're on the path, it doesn't bother me too much.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. Mary Michael in Mill Creek, Utah, west of the Rockies. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hi. I have a question for Claude.
Okay.
A quick story and a quick question.
Let's go with the story first.
Okay. First of all, I've always been able to see auras since I was 5. My parents sent me to a psychiatrist. But anyway, I was healing my husband one time. He had a kidney stone that was 5 centimeters, couldn't go up or down, so they had scheduled emergency surgery. I had been working on him with energy healing, and when he was at the hospital, he'd been given the drug, but they hadn't cut him open yet, and they were trying to find it, and it was gone, and the doctor was so frustrated. He said, "Where is it?" My husband, being drugged, said, "Well, maybe my wife took it." So, but my question is, and I also have healed cancers, things like that, but my main question is about the field that you were talking about. I've been able lately to see through solid objects.
Mm-hmm.
When it first happened, I was just kind of amazed. You see the outline of a solid object, but you can see through it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if this could be part of the torsion field that you have been discussing.
It could be. Could very well be. Because we all have torsion fields as part of our own body's energy, and the more we